Take a pit stop for all things NASCAR with the Four Tire Change podcast. Here is your host, Dawson Iserlo.
Welcome back into another episode of Four Tire Change. Dawson Iserlo here with ESPN Southwest Louisiana Sports Station. An exciting weekend, a switchover in the broadcast team, of course, from Fox to NBC, and a brand new racetrack in the Cup Series. Sunday evening delivered in almost every aspect as far as I'm concerned. We got a lot to get to here. Going to be fairly quick, though, because I think, we can kind of parse this race into a few different categories, and from there we'll kind of move on into the next weekend at Loudon, which is going to be really important for a lot of drivers on the cut line of the playoffs. But let's start with this race at Iowa. Had never been to Iowa before. I think the real skepticism became, the fact that they had only repaved the bottom lane, and I was certainly skeptical of it as well. And the fear was that you were just going to have one line of racing. It was going to get single file. It was going to maybe be like some of the boring Richmond races we've had in recent memory. And that's what I was kind of expecting. Like, I will say this race ended up vastly exceeding my expectations because I was concerned about the lack of multiple grooves. But what ended up happening is we had multiple grooves. We had really, really chaotic restarts in a good way. We had, I thought, a decent number of, I wouldn't say incidents, but different interesting strategies and, some tires wearing down and blowing out eventually, but not a ton of them. A couple of cars with some tire problems. Some real different strategies that played out because of the green flag runs, and then a couple of cautions at some different times. So I thought we had a really, really good short track, and we've spent so much time talking about how bad the short track package has been, and that's been really the case. So this was a nice refresher of what it can be. Now, this isn't the same thing as Martinsville, and just because we had a good race here at Iowa doesn't mean Martinsville in the playoffs is going to be any better than it's been recently. I don't know if you really could compare it to anything other than, I guess, Richmond is the track that it's the most close to. But again, the racing didn't look anything like the racing looked at Richmond at Iowa. So now I know Richmond had that beginning, few 20, 30 lap run, right, where the tire wear was a factor. And that's kind of something we were talking about here. But I don't know. I thought the tire wear was pretty good. It was where you wanted in a short track. And we saw a lot of comers and goers. So let's get into the guys who had good runs in this thing. Early on, you saw Logano out there. You thought maybe this is going to finally be Logano's day. Ended up being Penske's day for a different driver. We'll get to that in a minute. Josh Berry really impressed me. And, what Stewart-Haas Racing is going through right now, closing their doors up at the end of the season, a lot of crew members, team members, guys who work on the car, knowing they need new jobs, some of them leaving during the season. I think we heard some reports that, Chase Briscoe was told, hey, one of your guys, it's his last week because he's moving on. They're going through a ton right now, and Josh Berry, classic short track guy, right, came up on those types of circuits, and there was a stretch of this race where I thought Josh Berry was going to win it, and he was running out front, and he was doing a nice job. Again, the different strategies that were involved with this race made it so that a lot of different cars led, but we also had a lot of passing, and I thought that was a good sign as well. Ryan Blaney ends up being up there a good bit. Kyle Larson was the other car in the beginning stages of this race that just felt like he could win this thing, just was so fast, and he ends up getting in a couple of different incidents there, ends up eventually wrecking this thing and not having a good finish. But Larson felt like that was a rocket ship, and that number 5 team just continues to bring really fast cars to the track each and every week, as we've come to expect them to do. Chase Elliott had some moments running up near the front. He's been so consistent this year. I don't know if people realize how consistently good Chase Elliott's been this season. I know he's only got the one win, and he hasn't been leading a ton of laps, and he hasn't been winning races, but he's been doing everything but. Top 5s, top 10s. That number 9 team has been rock solid this year. And because of that, he becomes your new points leader after this race, passing up Larson, who, again, had the late issues and some different things go wrong for him despite having a great race car. So Ryan Blaney's the other guy here who's up and near the front, leads over 150 laps, I believe. And in the end, Ryan Blaney's the one who gets the win. Feels like vindication for him. As William Byron tried to run him down that last 20 or so lap run, and you saw that it was Blaney clearly who was holding something back, trying to save some tires, because when Blaney got it down to inside of a half second, when Byron got it into inside of a half second, Blaney pulled away a little bit and was able to hold him off for the win. But, obviously had one stolen from him with the gas, running out of gas situation a few weeks back. And, it felt for a while there was a chance because we were somewhat near a fuel window where it was could this really happen again? Could he run out of gas again, or is he going to have a tire issue? Is Ryan Blaney just fully snake-bitten this season? But everything holds off. His team makes the right stops. They make the right adjustments. and they do fill the car up with gas, at least enough to get around Iowa Speedway for the scheduled number of laps. So Blaney gets a big-time win, and we've talked about it. He's now doesn't have to deal with the playoff bubble, even though he was probably going to be on the right side of that anyway. We got 9 races left, and could we have 6 new winners to make it to where not all the winners get into the playoffs, or 7 new, I guess, would make it to where not everybody gets in? I don't think so, despite even a couple of road courses that maybe could get weird and Daytona mixed in there. I think Larson's going to win another race or two. I think Chase Elliott's going to win another race or two. I think that Denny Hamlin has a great shot to win another one, and certainly William Byron, we saw it. So I wouldn't expect that to be the case. But the guys who are on the bubble here, Bubba Wallace is right there. I think he's +6. Joey Logano is -6, but Logano has a little bit more momentum. Man, it's going to be a stressful month and a half, 2 months for those two teams, especially Bubba's if they don't get that win. And we'll see if Logano's able to flip the script. I think he's got a much better chance to win a race right now. The 23 team just hasn't quite had the speed week in and week out that we've expected. But you got some other guys who don't have a win. Ross Chastain is another one who feels like he's going to be good on the cut line. Martin Truex Jr. as well, who announced his retirement, by the way. We'll get to that in just a minute. But there is a lot to be decided here. And maybe not a ton of playoff spots available. We will see where that goes. Chase Briscoe's kind of on the wrong side of that bubble right now. Shout out Todd Gilliland, who's moved up to 20th in points. He's done a great job there. But I will be really interested to see if Logano can, A, win a race, or B, can he show that marked improvement that he's kind of started to show here down the stretch? Can it get him over the hump and comfortably into the playoffs? Or is a 2-time defending champion going to be sitting on the outside looking in? The other name that's not in the playoffs is Kyle Busch. And Busch just is going in the wrong direction. Another strong start this year, similar to last year. Wasn't quite as strong, obviously, because he didn't win the races. He won a couple of them last year. The A-team just doesn't seem to have it. And Richard Childress Racing as a whole has just been way out of whack this season. The Austin Dillon team has been terrible again. He is buried way down in the low 20s in points. So I don't know what's going on with RCR, and I don't know what's going on with Kyle Busch, but that team is really in some serious danger of missing the playoffs if Busch doesn't find a way to win a race. And they've thrown away so many good finishes. So I guess in some ways you could say they've had the speed, and that's true. They have had the speed. They have not had the results. Martin Truex Jr. is retiring at the end of the season. So this is something that we've been flirting with for the last couple of years with MTJ, and we heard him talk about it and decide to come back for another full go at it. And now he is going to go ahead and hang it up at the end of the season. He left the door open to coming back and running some races, which is exciting to keep a guy like Martin in and around the sport of NASCAR. I think is important. But that number 19 car is going to be open, and it's going to be the most coveted ride that's available in the offseason outside of some other unexpected driver changes. So, the biggest candidates for it, obviously Chase Briscoe's name has been thrown front and center, despite kind of a feeling that he was maybe a Ford guy. I know some people were a little confused about that, but if Toyota comes knocking and it's JGR and that number 19 team, then outside of any sort of contractual obligation, which I don't believe Briscoe has, why wouldn't he take that ride? I mean, it's one of the best in the sport, obviously. So from Briscoe's standpoint, it makes a ton of sense. For JGR, I think it does make some sense. Look, Briscoe has proven he has won in some Stewart-Haas cars that were, we know that team hasn't been as good as it once was. He's gotten some wins. He's got some unique skills. Now, look, the dirt race that he won, they don't have that on the schedule anymore. But we know he's good at road courses. He's solid there. He's been solid kind of everywhere. And I think from that standpoint, he is a really good fit for what JGR wants to do, because they want a guy who's going to come in here and be a veteran driver. They already have kind of their young next thing up, right, with Ty Gibbs in the 54 car. They already have the leader of this team, so to speak, in Denny Hamlin. And they have another kind of rising superstar in Christopher Bell. I think Briscoe kind of completes the puzzle in a way for them. So if it's not to be Briscoe, who else could it be? Man, I don't know. If you want to go talking about taking a real young guy and trying to bring him up, Corey Heim, is in that conversation. I know Noah Gragson would make a little bit of sense as well, but I think Briscoe honestly has a lot of similar characteristics to Gragson, but has more experience and more wins, and I think is a little bit better of a fit there. I know some people thought just because of the Bass Pro sponsorship that would make more sense, but I think JGR, again, with Briscoe having his own sponsorship as well, that could play into that. And then the rumor that people have, tossed around with Kyle Busch going back there, does it make some sense just because of how much Kyle struggled and how much we know he hates struggling? Yeah, but I don't think he would do that. I don't know if there's enough, mended relationships over JGR just yet for Kyle Busch to make a return. So for now, I'll hold off on that rumor. But again, if Briscoe goes there, you start to kind of move around the silly season seats here. Where's everyone else going to go? Where does, different cars fit in? We know Michael McDowell's headed to Spire. That announcement was made early, and front row has some seats to fill, and obviously those Stewart-Haas cars or Stewart-Haas drivers like Noah Gragson will be looking for other rides. I don't think Ryan Preece is going to get one, but we'll see. And that also leaves Josh Berry, who's had a really solid rookie season. So plenty more to get to, plenty more to discover as the season goes on. But this was a fun one at Iowa, and now we get to Loudon. New Hampshire is the next race. Did we learn stuff at Iowa that's going to help us at New Hampshire? Maybe so. Like the Stewart-Haas cars have been really good at New Hampshire over the past few years. I think Ford in general has been really good. So for me, when it comes to New Hampshire, like give me a driver here who I just talked about, kind of makes a big statement that he wants that open ride. How about Chase Briscoe winning it at New Hampshire? I just think the Fords have been good. Stewart-Haas has been good. I know it's kind of risky to think that they're going to do well based on who their crew is and who's showing up on any given day based on the fact that they're closing at the end of the year. But give me Chase Briscoe in an upset win at New Hampshire, and we'll see how it goes. Should be a fun race. New Hampshire's been pretty entertaining the last few years, and it's heating up. Playoffs are going to be here sooner rather than later. So go ahead and keep liking, comment, subscribing. Keep joining us here on 4 Tire Change. We appreciate it. Signing out.